Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home.
Welcome everybody to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So glad that you've joined me here today, and I'm super excited about my guests. Yes, that's guests as in plural, and I have some amazing people here today, a couple in fact, that you will love. So let me tell you first that if you haven't enrolled yet for 7 Simple Steps to End Emotional Eating Now, get on board. It's happening. It's amazing. My book, Heal Your Hunger, 7 Simple Steps to End Emotional Eating Now, is out there. It's getting great reviews. I just ran into a woman at a luncheon who read it and came up to me, just grabbed me, in fact, and said, I'm buying 10 books and sending them to friends because it touched me so much. She said, I cried all the way through. And this is a little gal. It's a little petite little thing. But nevertheless, she's an emotional eater and she knows it. And so she was really touched by just how different the information is in this book. So definitely pick up the book on Amazon. But if you want to fast track your success in ending emotional eating, join us for the course. And you can learn about that at healyourhunger.com. It's really amazing. And I will walk you through every one of the 7 steps and then some, and you will really, you'll transform your relationship with food, and you'll do it in a community of others who are doing it, so it just makes it all the more fun. So please join me for that. And now for my guest, who I just adore. Matthew and Orna Walters are Soulmate Coaches for spiritual, successful single women and the founders of the Love on Purpose Revolution, which is a global online event dedicated to busting the myth that love is supposed to happen by accident. Orna and Matthew have been featured on countless television, radio, and print outlets, including NBC, Fox News, MSN, USA Networks, and also they've been featured as guest experts on Bravo's Millionaire Matchmaker. I mean, these guys are everywhere, and they are sharing their message of love and just really how to really connect, how to heal on the inside so that you can connect on the outside. And that's, so much aligned with the Heal Your Hunger message as well. So thank you, Matthew and Orna. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Tricia. It's really great to be here. And, we just love the passion you have about, the mission that you have in life. And we hope we can share some of that passion with your audience about how we feel about love.
Yeah, thank you so much. I feel so honored that you're sharing us with your community. I know how your community is so important to you, and we feel really honored to be here today.
Oh, right back at you. So thanks so much for being here. So I know you guys are lovebirds. There is no secret about that, but you weren't always, because you found each other later in life. So tell me a little bit about each of you take turns and tell me about sort of what your path to love looked like.
Well, let me start that. It wasn't a pretty one, I'll tell you that. The truth is I grew up in a home with a lot of abuse, emotional abuse and physical abuse, and I knew I was wicked smart, so I kind of knew like my ticket out would be my brain, and so I even before college, I would adopt myself out to other families, it's kind of how I made it through. And after I graduated from UCLA with honors and all that stuff, I ended up in a relationship with a guy who, I really thought was going to be the guy. And it all came crashing down, truthfully, because on New Year's Eve of 1994, he beat me. And honestly, it was the wake-up call of a lifetime. I just can't imagine that I'd be doing this work today with my beloved if I hadn't gone through that traumatic event. And even though the physical wounds took time to heal, they healed rather quickly compared to all the emotional stuff and all the thoughts in my head of well, how did that happen? I mean, growing up with a rageaholic father who would beat me and then ending up choosing a guy who would do that? How did I do that? How did I choose somebody who would beat me when that's the last thing that I ever wanted? And I just want to say, I don't know you Tricia, the two of us, I'm married to the safest guy I know, and for me, he's also the sexiest guy I know. So, it was quite a journey. I mean, I certainly didn't go straight from that experience. It took quite a lot of years of healing and growth on the inside so that I could become the person that I needed to be in order to have a healthy love relationship. And we're going to share today about how we help people do that.
Yeah. And, not everybody who struggles in love has such a dramatic story like Orna does. I mean, my parents were married for 57 years before my mother passed a couple of years ago. I come from a large family, and I was the youngest. And in that dynamic, because I come from a family that didn't express emotion very well, like I'm sure a lot of your listeners have that experience as well. And I know that they share love by making fun of you, by picking on you, by joking with you. And so I always thought there was something wrong with me. And so when I got into a relationship, of course, that's how it always played out. A lot of the women I dated, would always sort of call me commitment phobic. I'm sure a lot of women, on the show can relate to that idea and have dated a guy like I used to be. But so much of that was because I didn't believe I was worthy of love. And so I would always sabotage the relationship. And it wasn't until I became, sort of got on that journey of self-acceptance and loving myself and really healing a lot of those wounds, was I then able to, have a relationship like the one I have with Orna, where I feel loved every day, and it's pretty amazing.
That is so beautiful. Well, it's definitely a journey, and we have to learn from our mistakes, and I don't think anybody usually sails right into the perfect relationship, so if there even is such a thing. So I think that's just so beautiful that you really have taken, the journeys you've been on and the results of it, which is finding each other, and taking that to the world to really share, how you can really hack that journey, right? Make it a lot shorter. But really, I think what I love about you guys is that you're really about healing on the inside, and that being the pathway to true love. So can you talk about that?
Absolutely. Matthew and I sort of coined this phrase, and we call it your love imprint. And so when we talk about your love imprint, it's like the system that's running in your subconscious mind. Like a long time ago, Tricia, I'm sure you learned how to tie your shoe, right? And when you learned how to tie a shoe, it took a lot of focus and concentration. You kind of learned, how to make a loop and however you learned to tie it, but you learned one way to do it. And so right now, like if we were to break into your house and put a gun to your head and say, tie your shoe. No, not like that. Tie it differently. You'd probably be like, what? You would be under a lot of stress and pressure to figure out another way to do something that you learned how to do one way a long, long, long time ago. And that's really the way love works. We're born as this human embodiment of the energy of love, right? We have no blocks to love. When Matthew and I are out in the world, we see a little baby and we're like, look, no blocks, right?
Exactly.
And babies shine that spotlight of love on anybody who's around, and they receive love from anybody who's willing to give it.
And what happens is we're born into this family system, and we have to adapt to that system. That little baby needs to feel two things in order to thrive in the world. We need to feel loved, and we need to feel safe. And we will do anything. We will take on any belief, any behavior, any strategy that allows us to feel loved and safe in our family of origin. And so when you have like a chaotic environment like Orna's, it's like that twisting into a pretzel. It's like, what shape can I take so that I don't get hit, so that I feel loved and right? Or sometimes it's more subtle, and it's a more subtle sort of belief system that we take on about ourselves. But because children have this weird way of taking full responsibility, instead of being able to say, well, gee, Mom, this isn't really loving. What would actually be really great is if you told me you love me and gave me a hug and everything's going to be okay, right? The 2, 3, 4-year-old child doesn't have any ability to say that. Instead, what we say to ourselves is, what is wrong with me that my parent is behaving this way? What is wrong with me that I can't seem to get the love I want? And so we take on a limiting belief.
And that system of that limiting belief is in our subconscious mind. And so it's running on autopilot. It even creates that spark of attraction with somebody out in the world. And so we talk about your love imprint as having like 3 parts to it, right? It's the limiting beliefs around love, your mental, emotional patterns, and your behavioral strategies around giving and receiving love. So we've all had that experience of walking into a room, of a few hundred people we've never met before, and we connect with some people, right? We sort of connect eyes, we smile, we might start conversation, but that's only a few people in that room, right? Then the majority of the people, they're like the extras in our own personal movie, right? They're there, but they're kind of gray and in the background. And yet, isn't it interesting that we sometimes connect with somebody right away? We find out we have all these things in common, right? We might make a new friend that way, or, ooh, we find that guy really hot across the room, right? And we might be flirty a little bit. But it's not like we're consciously deciding who is highlighted and who stands out for us and who ends up being like an extra and sort of gray and in the background. It's our subconscious mind that's filtering out who stands out and who doesn't. And what is it filtering on what criteria? Your past experiences. So the job of the subconscious mind is to keep us really in a kind of homeostasis, because the job of the subconscious mind is to keep us alive. So because you're alive right now and you're hearing us and watching us talk to you right now, your subconscious job is to give you more of the same circumstances, more of the same situations, because it knows you survived everything that you've been through. But you know what? The subconscious mind can't judge, right? That happens up here in this big, beautiful brain, that big prefrontal cortex part of us. So the subconscious has no clue if you're alive and blissfully happy or if you're alive and miserable and suicidal. And so we don't need a great love relationship to survive in life. But I don't think anybody would say that anyone would be thriving in life without it. And so really what we help our clients do is build that bridge from the survival mechanism so that they can actually thrive and create what they want, not just in love, but in their life.
That's beautiful. Yeah, in my book, I talk about old beliefs, and that's definitely those decisions we made at a very young age based on circumstances we were going through that were indelible in our subconscious. Like I'm not, like you talked about, Matthew, I'm not lovable, or or it hurts too much to love, or I'm not safe, opening myself up or being vulnerable. I mean, those things, they make such a lasting impression on our subconscious when we make them at such a young age, and then our whole life is basically dictated by these beliefs. That's so, it's so sad. And then I'm sure you see over and over people stumbling and falling in the love arena simply because they're driven by these beliefs they don't even know they have.
Well, that's exactly the case. I mean, we always love to give the example of Santa Claus, right? I imagine as a kid, most of your listeners at some point believed in Santa Claus, and then at another point discovered Santa Claus wasn't real. And maybe there was a disappointment or a hurt or an anger in that situation. But as adults now, we can look back at that and kind of laugh about it and go, yeah, that kid believed in Santa Claus, but hey, it was kind of cute. But we're not still angry about it, right? We're not still hurt about it. We've moved on from it. We've released it. We've healed the wound from that. And a big part of the work we do is really helping people identify what those wounds are and guiding them to healing them.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, because this system that's running in our subconscious, like it is literally on autopilot. It's like the GPS setting for love, right? Like your GPS for love. And so in order to shift and change it, first off, you have to have the desire to change. But the other part is being able to have the skills to tap into that part of us, that subconscious mind. Because the subconscious doesn't speak in English or French or Swahili, right? It doesn't speak language in that way.
Yeah, it communicates through symbol, image, story, and metaphor, much like our dreams, right? Our dreams are our subconscious mind taking the information from the previous day and figuring out what to do with it. But it also, our subconscious communicates through our body, through our physical body. And so when we can get in touch with our emotions on the physical level, and sometimes maybe you can't even identify that you're feeling hurt or angry or sad or whatever it is, but you just notice this feeling in the pit of your stomach or this tension in your jaw or wherever it is. But as you get in touch with your body and start really noticing where those feelings are showing up and what they feel like, then you're getting into a much deeper awareness of what's going on. And then from there, we can really, begin to transform that story, that physical story, and turn it into a much more useful way of being in the world.
And one of the biggest detriments to this journey to love, honestly, is the way our society thinks about love, right? And so part of our mission is to bust the myth of accidental love, right? This false belief that one day you're going to slip on a banana peel, fall in love with the right person, that it'll all just magically work out with this magical, mythical right person. And I know you've been married a while. We've been together 10 years, right? what we want your listeners to really get is that love is not an accident. And love does not operate under some different universal laws as anything else, right? And so really this journey is about really taking the reins of your love life and understanding that you are in charge, because ultimately love is a choice. And that the dating process is really supposed to be a process of discernment, and that it's just as important to know that it's important to deselect somebody as it is to select somebody. Because one of the things we know about emotions, I mean, Tricia, you work with people around their emotions all day long, right? What's the one thing that we know about emotion? It's going to change. Right? But nobody ever says, oh, I'm so blissfully happy. I think this is going to last forever. Right? That nobody ever. But yeah, when we feel, what we say is a negative emotion, right? Not that gets bad or something, but it's negative because we as human beings don't like to feel them, right? We feel hurt, sad, angry, shame, all of those feelings that are sort of negative emotions, and we feel like they're stuck, like, oh my God, I might feel this way forever. And that's not true either, because none of our emotions last. And yet we try to do this love by accident thing predicated on the way somebody makes us feel. And what do we know about our feelings? Our feelings are going to change. Yeah. And so that spark of attraction is really important. It is an important ingredient, like it does need to be there. But we look at that spark of attraction like a little tick box. Right? It's not the only thing that you're looking for. It's like, oh, attraction, okay, check, right? And then you can move on to see if that person really cuts the mustard about, is this the person you want to choose to love over time?
Yeah, it's something I've been thinking about lately, because I have been in a relationship for like my entire adult life, almost. And something I've been thinking about lately about love is that it's not about, how is it, like it's really like love goes so much deeper than and sometimes when you're in a relationship, when I'm in a relationship, sometimes I'm like, well, I don't agree with the way he's doing that, or I don't, God, I wouldn't do it that way. And then I start to think, well, maybe I don't like him, and then I'm thinking, I sort of do this little judgment thing of my partner, and then which I really like him, I really dig him, and I love him. But what I realized is that when I have that conversation in my head where I'm judging him and I'm somehow seeing his behavior or his decisions as a reflection on me, I'm realizing how conditional then my love is. Like I'm deciding that he's not doing it quite right, which means I don't know if I really like or love him, And what I realize when I'm doing that in my head, it's a very old tape for me. Like somebody has to be a certain way in order for me to love them. Of course, my whole life I'm like, I want somebody to unconditionally love me. Like just love me for who I am. Never mind, I don't bother doing that for somebody else,
Exactly. We call that the Funhouse Mirror, right? And all relationships are some version of the Funhouse Mirror, because what we don't realize is we're actually looking in the mirror at ourselves, but we think it's the other person that we're judging, right? We think it's the other person that we're looking at and going, man, I wish you would do that differently and be different and all of that. But the truth is, it's just a reflection back of those stories inside of us.
Right.
What you're also describing is a stage that all relationships go through. And I think sometimes we forget this, right? Because we all get attached to the romance phase. We all love that part of the relationship. It is literally a chemical high. You're literally on drugs for like 6 months to a year and a half. Sometimes it lasts as much as 2 years, right? But at some point, those drugs wear off. And here we are stuck with this person. And the weird dichotomy is first we're thinking, wow, I love this person because they're so different. It's so exciting because they're not like me. And then at some point you're like, wow, I wish this person was more like me because they drive me crazy.
Exactly.
Like the same thing. We're just thinking about it differently. And it's the hangover. It's the power struggle that all relationships go through. And so many of us, because we don't have the skills to navigate our relationships, we rinse and repeat, right? We have the romance phase, then we have the power struggle, and then we either end it and go find somebody else, or we just fall back into the romance stage and then the power struggle and romance and power struggle. We never move past that. We never know how to get to the next stage in relationship, which is really about creating this, partnership, this amazing union that a relationship can really be.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I realized, I guess just to finish up that thought, is that I realize that when I am thinking that way and I am being conditional in my love, it's like, am I here to love this person because they're like me or because they're doing it my way, or because I fundamentally love them and love has no conditions on it? And that's what I always had to remind myself, that no, the next phase for me, and I seem to have to remind myself, is to love unconditionally, like when whatever, and again, my husband does a lot of great things. It's not like I have to really like push myself to do this, but in those moments when I'm being judgmental, it's like, wow, I have to love this person, and I will be the better for it if I love them with no strings attached, no conditions whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of that skill set, right? I mean, Matthew and I always say, well, what's the point of bringing somebody in if you don't have that skill set to make it last? And I just want you to know, and I want your listeners to know, that for Matthew and I, really, when we're working with a client, we work through what we call like 3 phases, the 3 phases of the work in creating love on purpose. And we started off talking about that first phase, right? That first phase is identifying and dismantling the blocks, right? Like looking at your love imprint. What's the system in your subconscious mind? How are you keeping out the thing that you really desire through these limiting beliefs and mental emotional patterns and behavioral strategies? And how do we break them down? And basically we talk about it like this, like we interrupt the pattern in the subconscious by speaking the language of the subconscious, and you interrupt it and eventually reach this, we call it the tipping point, right? It's like at the tipping point, all of that old story, the whole love imprint just sort of falls away, and you get to step into your authentic self. And that's the mark of that start of the second phase, because the second phase is all about that. It's like, now that you don't have these limiting beliefs, well, what is it like to move through the world like that? And in that phase 2 is when we give our clients the skill set for lasting love. So we talk about the 5 stages of relationship, and we just mentioned 2, and I'm sure your listeners are probably like, oh my gosh, there's 5, And there's a lot of different labels for how to go through those 5 of those 5 stages. I mean, predicated on different, other therapists and sort of things. But there are that 5 stages. We like the labels that Dr. Susan Campbell uses, so I'll just give them really quick so that your audience can understand. There's much more than this lather, rinse, repeat of the romance power struggle. So there's the romance phase, the power struggle, of course. Then there's the stability stage. And in the stability stage, that's when the couple becomes like us against the world, right? Instead of fighting each other, they learn to fight for a win-win, right? How do we both win? How do we stay together? It's like that stability, and it's comfortable.
It's like you're fighting for the relationship instead of for yourself.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then that stage 4 is the commitment stage. And this is when the couple is really ready to make a lifelong commitment. And what's interesting is most people go through an engagement in the romance phase, and by the time they get to the ceremony of the commitment, right, like a wedding or whatever, they're already in the power struggle, right? It's only until you're in stage 4, the commitment stage, where you're ready to make a commitment. Because what happens in that 4th stage is you see the person and you go, oh, I see you. I see all of who you are. I see your warts and all, and I choose you anyway. I choose you anyway, right? That's what the commitment stage is all about. And the 5th stage of relationship is called the bliss stage or co-creation phase. It's where there's so much love between the couple that they create something that's greater than just the 2 of them, right? So for the majority of couples, it could be children. For us, it's our business. For older couples, it could be some philanthropic endeavor, something. But really, when you get to that 5th stage, there is so much love. You can't help but create something that's of benefit than more than just the 2 people in that relationship. And that's the journey you're supposed to be on, but it's not an accidental journey. It's one that you must take on purpose and learn that skill set so that you can make a good selection in the first place, and then also continue to choose that person over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's so important. It's so important to, like what you're stressing, that it is intentional, because nothing just happens. My husband often says the only thing that just happens in a garden is weeds. So guess what? If you want to have a pretty garden, you're going to have to do some work, to get the weeds out and plant the right stuff and to water it and get the sunshine. So it is an intentional journey, and it is work, and they say the only thing the only place that success comes before work is in the dictionary, so if you want to have a successful relationship, it's going to take work. And I think that's, unfortunately, I think that's where our the fantastical thinking of our culture, really does us a disservice, as we think we so want the fix of the relationship, thinking it will make us feel better, when in fact, having the relationship is only going to enable us to see more of who we are and give us more opportunities to work on ourselves and more opportunities to become who we're meant to be. But all of that, it's not a fantasy ride. It's real. It's real work, and it's real change,
Exactly. It's not like you're going to wake up tomorrow and suddenly you accidentally lost 10 pounds, or the refrigerator accidentally fixed itself, right?
Yeah.
Or world peace just accidentally happened. All of these things require us to I don't know if I like the word work. They require us to put some effort and some attention, some consciousness into, right? Because we don't think of our relationship as work, but we do think that, when we're unconscious in our relationship, then there's going to be problems, right? We're not going to communicate effectively. We're going to snap at each other. We're going to shut each other out. We're going to get into Cold Wars, all the different strategies people have. But when we're conscious and we can take responsibility for what is ours and we can communicate that clearly, right? We always say, make sure you're using I language, I, right? I feel this when this happens, instead of saying you did this and you're making me, right. Then there's a space. Right? There's space for communication, and there's an understanding. I really like going back to that metaphor of the Funhouse Mirror, right? There's that understanding that the things that are driving you crazy about this other person are really about you. We have this thing, we call it the responsibility equation, and I'm sure it's out there in other places, but this is how I always remember it. And it goes like this. If somebody has a problem with you, it's their problem. And if you have a problem with somebody, it's your problem. And when we think about it that way, it's like, oh, when I'm mad at somebody, when I'm hurt about somebody, it's my problem. And I'm the one that has to take action to do something about it.
Absolutely. If I have a problem with you, I have a problem.
Exactly.
And actually, if somebody has a problem with you, it's really none of your business, right? It's kind of that thing, like if, what other people think of you is really none of your business, because it's more about them and who they are and their projection of who they think you are and all of that stuff.
And it's so much harder when you're together all the time, right? When you're living together, when you're in an intimate relationship, it's so much more difficult to remember that. And we take responsibility for the other person's upset or the other person's happiness or whatever. And so many of the people we work with are like that. They're taking too much responsibility. They're looking at other people and saying, what can I do to make you happy? And there's nothing you can do to make another person happy.
Yeah.
Nope.
So true.
What's the job?
So many principles you're talking about are just absolutely, there's the same ones. What it takes to have a great relationship is what it takes to end emotional eating. Taking responsibility for our own feelings, being conscious, waking up to what our feelings are and how we're showing up in the world. So many things. So I just love talking with you guys. It makes so much sense. And it's, they're really the fundamental principles of a successful life. There's no two ways about it. I call it work, but I get what you're saying. It's being intentional. It's showing up and being intentional and expecting to put in order to have results, not just sit back and have it happen.
Yeah, nobody ever said, well, I had this job and, I went and asked for a raise and I didn't get it and that really hurt. And I quit that job and I'm going to look for a job where I never have to look for a raise again.
Yeah.
Nobody said that, right? And yet when it comes to love, we're always in reaction to the past, right? Whatever that last big heartache was about, we're in reaction to that. And that's not how to create, because you can't manifest from lack. So if you're tied up into all of those emotions from whatever happened back in the past, you're setting yourself up to create more of that because you're energetically still entangled with those events of the past, creating more of those emotions. And so really when you disentangle yourself from those past events and decide really, one of I just realized I didn't get to the third phase of the work that we do, right? I was talking about that first phase and the second phase of stepping in your authentic self, but the third phase is the creation phase. And in this phase, we literally walk our clients into their blind spot so that they can see clearly what their unique true soul partnership looks like. And, we cannot manifest without being able to see it. We have that saying, I just can't see myself doing that. And when somebody says that, right, like maybe they're talking about bungee jumping or skydiving or doing something, right? Oh, I can't see myself doing that, right? And they're speaking like a literal truth, because what they're saying is they don't have an image in their mind's eye of themselves doing that thing. And so if your focus is on those past hurts, even if the past just meant like yesterday or an hour ago or 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago, it doesn't matter. You're still tied up with that energetic component of those emotions of the past. So when you free yourself from that and you have a clear vision of what it is that you really want, from that place, you can actually create it.
That's so beautiful. I just love it. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you guys so much. I hope you don't mind me calling you guys, because obviously
okay. No problem.
You're just a beautiful, loving example of a man and a woman who are, you figured this out and you're living it and sharing it with others. So for those who are tuning in, thank you for doing so. And if you want to get in touch with these people, Orna and Matthew, they've created actually a free gift for you, which is the 7 major mistakes single women make that block them from true love and how to avoid them. And you can find that on their homepage, which is creatingloveonpurpose.com. And I'll put that in the show notes as well, in case you're driving and can't write that down. But definitely check that out. You want to get a hold of this information right away. And if you're not in a relationship right now, don't think you're deficient, because you're not. It's just an opportunity for you to go within and do some of this deeper work that they're talking about, and in order to just either be happy the way you are or to attract who you want. So, and they can definitely show you how to do that. So God bless you both. I'm really happy to have you here. Thank you so, so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tricia. We so enjoyed this time together, and we so hope that we can assist members of your Heal Your Hunger community if they're looking to really cut the ties of the past and help them create love on purpose. So I just want to say thank you for this time.
Gosh, thank you both so much, and God bless you.
If you enjoyed this show and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.